This is a problem. Welcome, I'm John of John Health and Fitness. No miracles, real life. The thing that will be a real miracle is prying that smartphone from your hands. Hey listen, we're all doing it. Smartphone is a wonderful invention. It's why we're on it all the time. But it exacerbated a long-standing problem of modern life. And that is, life happens in front of us. Driving, cooking, reading, working on the computer. This causes all this hunching over, drawing apart of the shoulder blades. The screen slouch. It started long before there were screens. But the screens exacerbate it. It's small, everything just gets closed off more and more and more. And we're going to try to counteract some of that. Quick caveat right from the beginning. I have disclaimers in the description at the end of this video, but basically this is for observational purposes only. Demonstration of kind of the things you can do. I don't know you well enough, of course, whether these things you should be doing, and so please consult with whomever you have to see if these are good ideas for you. But that said, it's going to be part of a 4-part series. Part 1 is going to be mobility exercises. Part 2 will be stretching. Part 3, strengthening. Finally, Part 4, some tips about habits we can develop to try to limit the amount of time we spend like this with the smartphone. So Part 1 is mobility. Mobility is basically trying to bring our joints through a range of motion essentially opposite of what causes the screen slouch or smartphone slouch. There is an element of both strength and stretching in it, but we're not focusing on either. We're really just focusing on bringing the joints and all the musculature through this range of motion, essentially opening things up. You'll note I'm going to concentrate on basically what goes on up here. The thing people notice the most is that back and the head coming forward, but I try to stay away from the back and the neck. It's really easy to tweak those things. I think if you address all these things up front here, the back and the head kind of follow. So it'll be towards the end that I'll address the head kind of jutting forward thing separately. But for now, let's work on mobility. Let's talk a little bit about what happens when we hold that cell phone in our hand. First thing that happens because we're reaching forward is those shoulder blades come apart and start separating. Second thing you'll notice, my upper arms kind of start rotating inward. And then my lower arms are also rotated inward, all the way to the wrists and the elbows. You've also got all this flexion at the elbow, flexion at the wrists, and then even some flexion in the fingers. So what you have basically is this forward reach, all this internal rotation, and all kinds of flexion. And what this is doing is shortening all kind of the muscles up in here, elongating the ones in the back. When we stretch in Part 2, we're going to stretch all that. In Part 3, when we strengthen, we're going to strengthen everything in the back, essentially. But for Part 1 right now, this is just about mobility. Just pulling everything out and open and getting the body accustomed to opening things up in basically the opposite direction. So we'll take those each one by one. So first up, let's start practicing just pulling those shoulders kind of back and down just a little bit. Now I'm not doing a full shoulder roll. I'm just kind of gently pulling back, not going for strengthening or stretching per se, just running it through a gentle range of motion. Just pulling it back, kind of feeling those shoulder blades as they pull together a little bit, and the shoulders kind of being drawn down. Now let's try to leave those alone for the most part. Let's start opening up those rotators. So we're just going to take the upper arm and kind of rotate it outwards. I'm trying to leave my lower arms kind of flopping there for now because I want to focus on that upper arm bone and just kind of rotating externally at the shoulder. Now let's try to leave that alone, and we'll rotate basically at the elbow and the wrist. I don't really want to isolate those two. Just kind of opening up at the elbow and the wrist. Again, I'm doing this very gently. I'm not going for a huge stretch at the end. Just kind of getting used to that motion, letting it kind of come back together naturally, and then out again. Now let's practice kind of opening those elbows up a little bit. So I'm just going to open them up. All right, full extension essentially. Just getting them extended as much as possible, the opposite of that elbow flexion we have when we using the cell phone. Leave those alone for a moment, and we'll just kind of open the wrist up too, extending the wrist backwards. Gently on this one, you can really overdo this part. So easy on the wrist, and then fine, just the fingers. Not a lot of extension in the fingers. I'm just pulling them back gently. Now you can try to pull that all into a single motion. Pull those shoulders down, back, rotating entire arm externally out, extending at the elbow, extending at the wrist, and opening the fingers up, also extending. See, it's not a huge movement. It's all coming back. And something else you might notice as you do this, as you pull particularly those shoulder blades together, you start standing up naturally. Your head kind of comes up a little bit. You can focus on that a little bit if you like, but I just feel it kind of all comes together once you start doing that overall motion. Do watch for arching your back a little bit as you pull back those shoulder blades. Think about doing a little pelvic tilt there, kind of tuck it in a little bit. Keep that back with this natural lumbar curve. So that's nothing you want to do for a very long time. Who would? But it's something you can do really just about anywhere. A lot of that you can do just standing in line at a grocery store or what have you. You can do it in your office. It doesn't look that weird. That'll come a little bit later in parts 2 and 3. But it's something you can do pretty naturally. It's a relatively benign motion. Again, caution, speak to whomever you have to speak to make sure this is the kind of thing you can do safely. Thanks for watching. I am John at John Health and Fitness. Check out my website, johnhealthandfitness.com. Hit that subscribe button and the alert bell if you want to see more videos, particularly ones that fall in this series. Comments always welcome down below. Check out the links. Lots of stuff down there as well. Take care. We'll see you next time. Now, where's my phone? Back in my day, we didn't have fancy cell phones. We played in the dirt with sticks. Basically, we lived like animals.